I'm so good at 3D animation. Pixar, here I come.
Welcome to Marvel Heroes. Is it worth the space? Or I plan to answer if Marvel Heroes is worth the space that it takes up on your hard drive. But what is Marvel Heroes, you may be asking? The Steam page reads, Marvel Heroes is the Marvel MMO that you have been waiting for. It plays Iron Man, Thor, Wolverine, Hulk, Spider-Man, Captain America, and many more as they team up to try and stop Dr.Doom from devastating the world with the power of the Cosmic Cube. Marvel Heroes features a deep leveling system unique to each superhero, diverse locations set across the expansive Marvel Universe, a robust crafting system, action-packed player versus player, and much more. Marvel Heroes is a free-to-play, massively multiplayer action RPG for PC created by David Brevik, the visionary behind Diablo and Diablo 2, with an extensive original story crafted by Marvel superscribe Brian Michael Bendis. In layman's terms, it's another Diablo-style game, but this time, in the Marvel Universe. So the game starts, and you can choose from one of 5 free heroes. Hawkeye, Scarlet Witch, Storm, Thing, or Daredevil. You'll notice that, those aren't any of the heroes mentioned in the Steam description. That's because you need to buy most of the heroes with microtransaction cash, which is bad news. But the good news is, one of those heroes is Rocket Raccoon. Gameplay. So you click around and attack people with the left click and bind abilities to ask for it. It controls the same way all Diablo clones do. It doesn't do anything new with the controls, but it certainly doesn't do anything bad with them. The skills aren't terribly interesting, but they aren't awful either. I played Daredevil, so I mainly just used the dodge roll to cross the map faster and hit people with billy clubs. The Scarlet Witch and Hawkeye had a bit more interesting skills, like some AoEs and arrows. I played with 3 other people, so I might have a skewed perspective of the difficulty, but from what I saw, the game hit the sweet spot where the game is an easy loot fest for most of the time, but throws something tricky at you every once in a while that's almost too much for you to overcome. Then you do overcome it and you feel awesome. At one point we were fighting a boss that was a moderate challenge, then we got his health down to about half, and 2 previous bosses joined in the fight. The whole crew except for one of us were downed at one point, and we still prevailed. Player-to-player interaction. Alright, get this. I don't think trading is in the game yet. The 4 of us working at the interface couldn't figure out how to trade, and that is effectively just as bad as not having trading, if not worse. Why have a feature if none of your players can access it? Another gripe I had was despite having a posse of 4, we would occasionally be given an unwanted 5th in our party without anyone inviting him. I suppose that was to make some of the dungeons playable for people who were alone, but we weren't even able to kick them. And if we wanted to make a run to the Avengers Tower to empty our inventories, we would load back into the dungeon, and the 5th would have already cleared it. The loot is unique to each player, which is good, so we could all get the same loot from the dungeon without any effort, which is all well and dandy, but we would like to get experience and, play the game. It left us really wanting to kill the 5th member, but we can't because the PvP mentioned in the Steam description is unlocked after you complete the main story. I haven't played the PvP yet, so I have no idea how that is. Content. In the middle of the game. Content. Having to beat the whole main PvE plot might seem like a lot of work to be able to PvP, but the campaign really isn't that long. We played for around 4 hours and are already halfway through. The campaign is split up into chapters that consist of an overworld area, a few dungeons, and several minuscule dungeons that are unrelated to any quests. The overworld areas, where you can see everyone playing in that area and kill stuff with them, there are occasionally these optional events that occur and attract everyone on the overworld. For example, what you're seeing on the screen right now is around 30 Hawkeyes, Daredevils, Witches, Storms, and Things, all wailing on Venom. If you look closely, I think you can see a Rocket Raccoon too. Those events are pretty crazy and fun. Dotted across the overworld are those minuscule dungeons I mentioned earlier, which typically only contain a chest and some enemies that drop a whole lot of experience, but very rarely you'll find a random dungeon with a boss in it, and those are exciting because it brings promise of good gear and something different. I found a Daredevil costume on the corpse of the Taskmaster after I defeated him. I guess he must have liked to cosplay. The longer dungeons are those places where we were typically stuck with that 5th member I've been complaining about. Wouldn't have been that bad if it had ever been a Rocket Raccoon. Maybe. All the areas in the game look different, and they look pretty good. and you never spend long enough in an area for it to get boring, unless you get horribly lost like we did at one point. Not to say there's a lack of direction, we're just kind of bad. Now down to the big question. Is it worth your space? I'm afraid of commitment. I don't like games that expect you to put hundreds of hours to get to the good part of the game. Marvel Heroes, as it stands at present, is around 10 hours long to complete all the PvE content, and that isn't very long for something billed as an MMO. I like that. If you're looking for something that lets you play your favorite Marvel characters, a quick adventure to play through with your friends, or enjoy Diablo-style games a lot, I think this is definitely worth looking at. But if you want a really deep MMO in this style that you will never run out of things to do in, I would look elsewhere. So, is Marvel Heroes worth the space? Yes. And if you don't like it, just delete it. It isn't like you spent money on it or anything. Jeez.